I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who would fall for someone older than me, let alone someone 11 years older. If you asked me 2 years ago what I thought about age gap relationships, I probably would have shrugged and said something stupid like, I don't know, man, seems complicated. And maybe that's still true. Maybe it is complicated. But the part one didn't understand back then was how natural it can feel when the connection is real. How something that looks strange from the outside can feel obvious, almost inevitable from the inside. And yeah, I'm telling this because I don't have anyone in my regular life I can say it to without sounding like I'm bragging or confessing to something inappropriate. She wasn't my teacher, my boss, or anyone with authority over me. Nothing scandalous like that. But she was older, 33 when I met her. I was 24, and that was enough for the people around me to raise eyebrows. No one said it outright, but I could feel it. That quiet judgment people pretend they don't have. But before any of that, before the age gap mattered or even crossed my mind, there was just her. Her name's Emily. I met her on a Sunday morning, which is funny because Sunday mornings in my neighborhood are usually dead. But there she was, sitting alone in the corner of a small coffee shop a block from my apartment. I'd never seen her there before. Maybe because I usually didn't get up early enough on weekends. But that day I had some stupid burst of motivation and decided to go right at the cafe, another thing I rarely did. I remember thinking she didn't look like she belonged there. She looked too put together. Dark jeans, a simple white blouse. Her hair tied up in a loose braid that somehow made her look effortlessly elegant. She had this calmness to her, like she wasn't in a rush to be anywhere, like she wasn't trying to escape anything or chase anything. Just sitting there, reading a book with this little half-smile that appeared every few minutes. And I don't know what got into me, but I kept glancing at her. Not staring, just those stupid, quick, pretend you're checking your phone glances. Every time I'd look back down at my laptop, I'd type 3 words and immediately forget what I was supposed to be working on. She noticed me before I realized she noticed me. I was mid-sip of coffee when she said, "You've opened that same document 5 times in the last 20 minutes. I swear I almost choked." I looked up and she was smiling at me. Not mocking, not flirting, just amused in a warm, gentle way. Yeah, I said. Brilliant response, I know. She laughed quietly, closed her book with one hand, and tilted her head slightly. Writer's block. I'm not even a writer, I said. So I think it's just block. She laughed again and it sounded like a reward, like she didn't give that laugh to everyone. That was our first conversation. Just a few minutes, mostly her teasing me about opening and closing a blank Google Doc while pretending to be productive. I thought that was it. Just one of those tiny, insignificant interactions with a stranger you never see again. But when I got up to leave, she said, "See you around." Not "have a good day." Not "nice meeting you." Just "see you around." Like she already decided we'd cross paths again. The second time we met was 2 days later on a Tuesday night. Same cafe, different vibe. This time it was almost empty, soft jazz playing from some speaker I couldn't see. She was there again, this time in a cozy gray sweater, her hair down, wearing glasses. And just like before, she noticed me instantly. "You're early for someone who doesn't write," she said. I tried to play it cool. "Maybe I came here for the coffee." She raised one eyebrow. "Sure." I'm not proud of how quickly I folded. "Fine. Maybe I hoped you'd be here." That was the first moment things shifted, even if it was subtle. She closed her laptop and asked if I wanted to join her. I don't think I said yes in words, I just sat down, and she smiled like she expected exactly that reaction. We talked for an hour, then 2, then 3. I learned she worked as a UX designer for a tech company downtown. Lived alone. Loved old jazz and hiking but hated running. Traveled a lot in her 20s. Carried herself with this calm confidence that I wasn't used to in people my age. She didn't try to impress me. She didn't talk over me. She listened, actually listened, which is rare. And I didn't feel young around her, not in the way I feared. I didn't feel inexperienced or stupid. She wasn't patronizing or motherly. She was just present. There was a moment that night I still remember clearly. She leaned forward to adjust her glasses and one strand of her hair fell over her face. She tucked it behind her ear, and I watched her do it with the same stupid awe I'd get watching sunsets when I was a kid. She noticed me staring. "You okay?" she asked softly. "Yeah," I said. "Just really like talking to you." Her expression changed. Not into a smile exactly, but something warmer, softer, the kind of look that makes your chest feel too tight. Before we left, she touched my forearm lightly, barely a second, and said, "I like talking to you too." You know, that touch stayed with me for days. The third time we met wasn't an accident. It was Friday. I was finishing a late shift, exhausted, walking home with my hoodie pulled over my head, and then my phone buzzed. A number I didn't know. "Hey, it's Emily. I hope this isn't weird, but I found your Instagram from the cafe tag. Do you want to grab a drink tonight?" I must have read that message 5 times. Older women don't chase younger guys. At least that's what I always thought. But she wasn't chasing me. She was inviting me into her world like it was the most natural thing ever. That night was the first time the chemistry between us became undeniable. The way she looked at me, the way she leaned closer when I spoke, the way she let her hand rest near mine on the table, close enough that our fingers brushed just slightly. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't messy. It was warm, soft, magnetic. By the time we left the bar, she didn't ask if I wanted to walk her home. She just said, "Come with me." And I did, without hesitation. I didn't expect her apartment to look the way it did. I don't know why, but I thought someone like Emily, organized, confident, elegant, would live in one of those minimalistic places with gray walls and cold lighting. Instead, her home felt warm the second I stepped inside. Soft lamps, books stacked on every surface, a faint scent of vanilla and something floral I couldn't place. A cozy blanket casually thrown over the arm of the couch. Felt lived in, safe, and honestly a little bit intimidating in a good way, like I had just stepped into the world of someone who had their life figured out. She kicked off her boots and brushed a lock of hair behind her ear. "Make yourself comfortable," she said, walking toward the kitchen. "Wine okay?" "Yeah, wine's great," I said, trying not to look like I was studying every detail of her place. Because I absolutely was. She returned with 2 glasses and handed one to me. Then she sat on the couch and looked at me like she was waiting to see where I'd choose to sit. I hesitated just for a second and she noticed. "You can sit next to me," she said, her voice soft but sure. "I don't bite." I sat down, maybe a little closer than I intended. She didn't move away. We talked again about our jobs, our families, the stupid mistakes we made in our early 20s, her favorite movies, the worst dates we'd ever had. I never told her, but I started watching her more than I was listening. The way she curled her legs under herself. The way she swirled her wine glass slowly. The way she laughed with her whole face. And she was looking at me too. I could feel it every time she glanced at my mouth when I spoke. Every time she leaned in just a little too close. Every time her knee brushed against mine and she didn't shift away. There was this moment, maybe half a second, when she looked at my hand resting between us. Not long, not obvious, but enough. Enough for me to do something that felt terrifying and completely natural at the same time. I turned my hand slightly so my fingers could touch hers. Just the lightest contact. Barely anything. But her breath caught. So quietly I almost doubted I heard it. She didn't pull away. Instead, she looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen from her before. Something warmer. Something almost vulnerable. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Anything. Does this feel strange to you? The age thing." Her voice was steady, but her eyes weren't. They held a hint of fear, or maybe doubt. It surprised me. Someone as confident as Emily feeling unsure. "No," I said honestly. "It feels right. Unexpected, but right." She let out a slow breath, like I had removed a weight from her shoulders. "Good," she said quietly, "because I don't usually do this." "What? Invite guys over?" She laughed softly. "Invite someone over because I can't stop thinking about him." My chest tightened so suddenly it almost hurt. I wanted to kiss her right then, but I didn't move. I wanted her to lead if she wanted to. She noticed. "You're cautious," she whispered, her voice lower now. "I thought guys your age were impulsive. Maybe I'm just trying not to mess this up." That made her smile. A slow, warm, dangerous smile that made my hands feel unsteady. She shifted closer. Her thigh pressed fully against mine now. She lifted her hand and rested it lightly on my chest, right over my heartbeat. "You're not messing anything up," she said. I don't know who leaned in first. Maybe we both did. But suddenly her forehead was against mine, her breath warm against my lips. The closeness felt electric. Not rushed, not desperate, just charged. I closed my eyes for half a second, and that was all the invitation she needed. She kissed me, soft at first like she was testing something, then deeper, warmer, her fingers sliding into my hair, her other hand moving to my jaw. I felt her exhale against me, like she had been holding her breath since the moment I walked into her apartment. I kissed her back, every part of me wanting to memorize how she felt. Her lips, her warmth, the weight of her leaning into me, her confidence mixing with something gentler, something she didn't show often. When the kiss finally slowed, she rested her head against my shoulder. Neither of us spoke for a moment. Then she said, almost whispering, "I thought I grew out of this kind of excitement." "What kind?" I asked softly. "The kind that makes you feel young again, like everything's new." I smiled without meaning to. "You don't seem old to me." She nudged my arm playfully. "You know what I mean." I did. She'd lived more life than I had. More relationships. More heartbreaks. More years figuring out who she was. And yet here we were, two people at different stages in life, sitting ridiculously close on her couch like teenagers who didn't know what to do with all the feelings. She shifted slightly to look at me. "Can I tell you something else?" she asked. "Yeah. I was nervous tonight." She laughed once, quietly. "You make me nervous." "Why?" "Because you look at me like you see something I'm not sure I deserve anymore." I took her hand, interlacing our fingers gently. "You deserve everything you think you lost," I said. "And more." That changed her expression again. Softer, more open. Like some part of her she kept guarded was melting a little. She leaned her forehead against mine once more. "Stay a while?" she whispered. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. And I meant it. I didn't end up leaving Emily's apartment that night until way later than I planned. Not for any dramatic reason, not because something happened that would make a great plot twist, but simply because being around her felt grounding. Easy. Like time moved differently when she was near. But that wasn't the night everything changed. That came later. For a few days after that evening, we texted constantly. Not in a clingy way. More like this natural rhythm that settled in without either of us forcing it. I'd wake up to a message from her. Sometimes something playful. "Did you survive the morning?" And sometimes something sweet. "Hope your day goes well today." She wasn't trying to act like someone she wasn't. And I wasn't either. It felt strange how simple it was to talk to her. One afternoon, a few days after our first real night together, she texted, "Stop by the studio if you're free. I want to show you something." Her studio wasn't far. I knew she was an interior designer, but I had never actually seen her workspace. When I arrived, she opened the door with that half-smile I'd gotten addicted to way too quickly. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. Her studio was the opposite of the chaotic stereotype people have about creative spaces. Everything was organized. Fabric samples grouped by color, tools arranged perfectly on the wall, sketches pinned neatly on a board. It looked like a place where she brought ideas to life. "Impressive," I said, looking around. "That's one word for it," she replied with a small laugh. "Mostly it's just controlled chaos. But today's not about that." She motioned toward her desk. "Come here." She had a portfolio open showing a set of designs. Warm tones, elegant lines, a subtle but modern feel. "What do you think?" she asked. "It's beautiful," I said honestly. "Are these for a client?" She hesitated. Not exactly. Then she looked at me. It's something I've been working on just because I wanted to. No deadlines. No expectations. I glanced at her. You don't get to do that often, do you? Not really, she admitted. I guess I wanted you to see this part of me. The part that isn't put together. The part that makes things without worrying if someone will approve. I didn't know why, but something about that hit me harder than I expected. You don't have to hide that part, I said. With me. Her expression softened. I'm learning that, she whispered. We talked for a while, mostly about her work, how she started, the things she loved about design, the things that exhausted her. She was passionate, but not in the dramatic way people romanticize creativity. She was focused, intentional. She cared deeply, but she didn't brag about it. And then, as we were talking, she brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, and her hand lingered there for a moment. She looked at me with this expression I couldn't quite read. You know, she said quietly, I didn't expect you to become important. I swallowed. I didn't expect you either. She stepped closer, stopping right in front of me. There was no hesitation this time. She put her hands on my chest and leaned in, kissing me slowly. Not rushed, not frantic, just certain. Her lips were warm, her touch steady. I wrapped my arms around her waist, pulling her gently closer. She let out a small, involuntary sound against my mouth that sent a shiver through me. When we pulled apart, she stayed close, her forehead touching mine again. Our new habit. Okay, she whispered. Now I'm definitely not getting rid of you. I laughed softly. Good, because I wasn't planning on going anywhere. She bit her lip, like she wanted to say something but wasn't sure if she should. What is it? I asked. She hesitated. You're younger, and I keep waiting for the moment you realize you could be doing something else with someone. Simpler. Emily, I said, taking her hand gently. I'm not looking for simple. She exhaled, like she needed to hear that more than she expected. We kept talking, standing dangerously close to each other, neither of us fully ready to pull apart. And then she stepped away, but only to walk toward her drafting table. Come here, she said. I followed her. She picked up a small wooden box and handed it to me. What's this? I asked. Open it. Inside were photos, old ones, faded slightly around the edges. Her early projects. Her first apartment. Pictures of her smiling with a confidence that looked slightly younger and slightly wilder. These are my beginnings, she said. The parts of me that existed before the polished version you've been seeing. Why show me this? I asked. She looked at me with a seriousness that made my chest tighten. Because you make me feel like I don't have to pretend I'm always in control. And that scares me more than I want to admit. I put the box down gently and stepped close to her again. You don't have to pretend anything with me, I said. Her eyes flickered, surprised, touched, and maybe a little relieved. She lifted her hand to my cheek, tracing along my jaw lightly with her thumb. You're dangerous, she whispered. How? You make me believe in things I stopped believing in. I didn't have a response to that, not immediately. So instead I kissed her again, slow and warm, like I was answering the words she wasn't ready to say. Her hands slid up my back, pulling me closer, her breath mixing with mine. The energy between us shifted, deeper, more intimate, but still controlled, still balanced. It wasn't a rushed moment. It wasn't about anything physical. It was about connection, something that had been building since the night in her apartment. When we finally separated, she rested her head against my chest. Stay, she murmured, the words soft but certain. I will, I said, and I did. As our relationship continued, the line between friendship, mentorship, and romance blurred even further. I realized that being with her wasn't just about passion, it was about growth. She challenged me to think differently, to approach situations with more thoughtfulness, to recognize patterns in my own behavior I hadn't noticed before. And yet, she did it in a way that never felt controlling. There was always room for my own voice, my own choices, and my own mistakes. One Saturday, she invited me on a spontaneous day trip outside the city. I wasn't sure what to expect. but that was part of the thrill. We drove through winding roads, laughing over old songs on the radio and sharing stories from our past. She pointed out landmarks and little details with a storyteller's flair, making even the mundane feel alive. I noticed how she interacted with strangers along the way, polite, confident, and effortlessly engaging. It was inspiring, but at the same time, she always made sure I felt included and noticed, not overshadowed. By the time we reached a small, secluded lake, the sun was beginning to set. The water glimmered in the fading light, and the world seemed to pause around us. She laid out a small picnic, and we sat close together on a blanket, sharing simple food and more intimate conversations. In moments like this, I was acutely aware of the age difference, but instead of feeling insecure, I felt privileged. To witness her laughter, to share these quiet yet charged moments, felt like stepping into a rare, private world that belonged only to us. Physical closeness was becoming a natural extension of our connection. It wasn't forced or constant. It was comfortable, deliberate, and often playful. She would brush against me casually, or let our fingers touch while passing objects, and the electricity between us would spike subtly. The restraint made the moments when we did indulge in intimacy all the more intense. There was a rhythm forming, a balance of anticipation, desire, and mutual respect. That evening by the lake, as the sky turned pink and purple, she rested her head on my shoulder. The world around us fell silent except for the faint ripple of water. I wrapped an arm around her, feeling the warmth and softness, and understood that this relationship was unlike anything I had experienced before. It was an emotional and physical partnership built on trust, curiosity, and shared vulnerability. Later, back in the city, we continued exploring our intimacy in ways that felt both exciting and safe. She had a way of guiding without dictating, teaching without patronizing. Each encounter reinforced a sense of mutual desire, exploration, and emotional connection. I began noticing subtle gestures of affection. Her hand brushing my hair from my forehead, a teasing smile during a playful argument, or the warmth in her eyes during quiet moments. These gestures were as intimate as our physical encounters, creating a web of connection that went beyond words. Our conversations often moved from lighthearted banter to profound topics. We discussed personal fears, family dynamics, and the challenges we faced in our respective lives. She listened without judgment and offered advice when appropriate, blending her experience with empathy. I started recognizing how much I relied on her perspective, not just in romantic contexts but in life decisions. And yet, she never imposed her views. It was always a dialogue, a partnership of minds. The intensity of our relationship occasionally led to moments of tension. Sometimes, my youth and impulsiveness clashed with her calm, calculated approach. Other times, I worried that I wasn't experienced enough to truly satisfy or understand her. But rather than letting these feelings create distance, we used them to deepen our bond. Honest communication became a cornerstone, acknowledging insecurities, clarifying expectations, and finding compromise. These moments strengthened our connection, proving that passion alone was not the foundation of what we were building. One night, after an evening of cooking together and sharing wine, we ended up sitting on her balcony, the city lights shimmering below. She leaned into me, and I felt her warmth radiate as we held each other. The conversation turned intimate, not sexually but emotionally, about desires, boundaries, and what we valued in a partnership. I realized that physical passion was just one layer of our connection. The emotional depth, the mutual respect, and the intellectual engagement made it truly extraordinary. Despite the intensity, she allowed space for me to explore my own world. She never demanded constant attention or rushed commitment. This balance was new to me, having only experienced more traditional or chaotic relationships before. I began to appreciate the beauty of a dynamic where independence and intimacy coexisted, where passion didn't require possession and desire wasn't dependent on control. The physical intimacy in our relationship evolved organically. It wasn't wild or reckless. It was explorative and considerate. She guided me with patience, showing me how to attune to both her desires and my own, and I responded with curiosity and enthusiasm. Each encounter became a dance, a blend of playful teasing, tender touches, and passionate exploration. The moments were both thrilling and grounding, leaving us connected on multiple levels. We also developed rituals, small, meaningful habits that strengthened our bond. Morning coffee together, texting about little moments during the day, sharing playlists, and exchanging books or articles we found thought-provoking. These rituals weren't grand gestures. They were intimate threads weaving our lives together, creating a sense of continuity and closeness. Through all this, I began to notice subtle transformations in myself. I was more patient, more aware, more reflective. She inspired me to think critically, communicate openly, and embrace emotional honesty. In return, I reminded her of spontaneity, of embracing youthful energy, and of finding joy in unexpected moments. Together, we were a blend of contrasts that created harmony, excitement, and mutual growth. Looking back on this stage of our relationship, I realized how rare it was to find someone who combined wisdom, desire, and compassion in such a seamless way. The attraction between us wasn't just physical. It was a meeting of minds, hearts, and souls. Each interaction, whether playful, intimate, or profound, reinforced the uniqueness of what we shared. And yet, there was always the thrill of unpredictability. The way our age difference brought new perspectives, the tension between experience and enthusiasm, the delicate balance of giving and receiving, kept the relationship alive, passionate, and deeply engaging. By this point, I understood that we weren't just lovers or friends, we were collaborators in a shared journey. Every date, every conversation, every moment of intimacy contributed to a growing tapestry of experiences that belonged only to us. And in that space, I felt fully alive, challenged, and cherished in a way I had never imagined possible. As months passed, our relationship began to settle into a comforting yet exhilarating rhythm. There was a pattern to our days together, a blend of ordinary routines and moments charged with desire. She was still the same magnetic, confident woman, but now there was an added layer of familiarity. I knew her habits, her favorite little quirks, and the subtle ways she expressed affection without needing to say a word. One weekend, she suggested we spend the day at her apartment, just the two of us, no plans or expectations. It was the kind of day that promised intimacy in both the physical and emotional sense. We cooked breakfast together, our movements overlapping in the kitchen, teasing each other as we navigated the cramped space. A spilled cup of coffee led to laughter, and a playful chase around the apartment escalated into gentle touches and shared smiles. Moments like these felt effortless, yet electric, a reminder that passion didn't always need a dramatic backdrop. Later, we settled on the couch with blankets and a shared playlist of music that we both loved. The conversation drifted from nostalgic memories to dreams for the future. She asked questions I hadn't expected, about what I valued most in life, how I handled setbacks, what I secretly feared. Her curiosity was both comforting and slightly intimidating. It pushed me to be honest in ways I wasn't used to, and when I answered, she responded with warmth, validation, and insight, offering guidance without ever imposing it. Physical intimacy became an extension of our emotional closeness. Touches lingered just a bit longer, hugs were tighter, and kisses carried a weight that was more than just desire. She had a way of balancing fire and restraint, pushing me to explore new aspects of connection while ensuring that I felt safe and respected. Every encounter left me feeling both exhilarated and deeply seen, a combination I had never experienced before. One afternoon, she surprised me with a small adventure, a trip to a local art exhibit she had wanted to see. Walking among the paintings and sculptures, she shared her thoughts on the pieces, challenging me to see them in ways I might not have. I realized that being with her wasn't just about romance. It was about expanding my perspective, learning, and growing. She encouraged me to think critically, but never in a way that felt condescending. Instead, it felt like a partnership of minds, a mutual exploration of ideas and feelings. As we spent more time together, our relationship grew more layered. We argued occasionally, not about big things but over small disagreements or misunderstandings. For example, one night we clashed over plans for the weekend, me wanting spontaneity, her preferring structure. Instead of letting it fester, we talked it out, sometimes laughing at how stubborn we both could be. These conflicts didn't feel threatening. They felt like natural friction points in a relationship where two distinct personalities were learning to coexist. And often, the resolution was followed by deeper connection, as if the act of navigating tension together reinforced our bond. The intensity of our connection manifested in other subtle ways. She would text me during the day, little messages that were playful, affectionate, or teasing. I would find small gifts from her, carefully chosen to reflect my personality or shared inside jokes. We developed rituals, weekend coffee runs, long evening walks, and quiet nights of shared music. Each ritual, however small, strengthened our connection and made the relationship feel richer, more intimate. The physical side of our relationship continued to be a delicate dance. She never rushed or pressured, always reading my reactions, guiding with patience and intuition. There was a rhythm to our encounters that blended tenderness, passion, and playful curiosity. Each touch, each kiss, each embrace deepened both desire and trust, making intimacy a continuous discovery rather than a fixed routine. We also explored boundaries together, testing the limits of comfort, communication, and emotional openness. Sometimes she would challenge me intellectually, asking questions I hadn't considered or pointing out inconsistencies in my thinking. Other times, she would playfully provoke me, seeing how I responded to teasing, flirtation, or gentle provocation. These moments were thrilling, reminding me that desire and emotional connection were intertwined, creating a multi-layered relationship that kept me both engaged and challenged. Despite the fiery passion and playful banter, there was a grounding element in her presence. She had a way of making the chaotic moments of life feel manageable, of bringing focus and calm without dulling the excitement. I noticed this particularly on days when I felt overwhelmed. Her voice, her touch, her perspective had a stabilizing effect. I began to realize that desire alone couldn't sustain a relationship. It was the combination of intimacy, trust, guidance, and emotional alignment that made what we had truly remarkable. One night, as we lay together after a long day, she spoke about her past in a way I hadn't heard before. She shared fears she had, mistakes she regretted, and moments of vulnerability that she rarely revealed. I listened quietly, holding her hand, understanding that this was a level of trust she hadn't granted easily. It made me appreciate the depth of our connection even more. The age difference mattered less than the fact that we had cultivated a space where honesty, intimacy, and desire could coexist without judgment. In quieter moments, we would simply sit together, reading or listening to music, letting the day's energy settle. These periods of calm were just as important as the moments of passion. They reminded me that intimacy wasn't always loud or demonstrative. It could be shared through proximity, gestures, and unspoken understanding. By now, I was fully aware of how rare our connection was. She wasn't just a romantic partner. She was a guide, a muse, and a co-adventurer in life. I began to see how much she influenced me, not through instruction, but by example, through her choices, attitudes, and way of approaching life. She encouraged me to be more thoughtful, more expressive, and more attuned to both my emotions and hers. And yet, our relationship was never stagnant. Every encounter, every discussion, every adventure was a chance to rediscover each other. The fire, curiosity, and mutual desire remained, layered over the growing foundation of trust, affection, and understanding. Even mundane moments felt charged with potential, as if the next conversation or touch could reveal something new about us both. Looking back, I realized that what we shared wasn't fleeting. It wasn't a passing fling or a temporary thrill. It was a living, evolving partnership that blended passion, intellect, and emotion in a way I hadn't thought possible. Each day with her revealed new facets of who she was and, in turn, new aspects of myself. And I knew, deep down, that this relationship would leave an indelible mark on me, shaping the way I viewed love, desire, and intimacy forever. As our relationship matured, I began noticing nuances in her behavior that made me admire her even more. It wasn't just her confidence or sensuality. It was the balance of strength and vulnerability, the ability to be fiercely independent yet deeply attentive to our connection. Watching her navigate life with such poise made me feel both inspired and humbled. I wanted to rise to meet her, not just in desire but as a partner in every sense. One evening, she invited me to join her for a quiet dinner at a rooftop restaurant she loved. The city lights twinkled below, the air was warm with summer's lingering touch, and the soft hum of conversation around us created an intimate bubble. We spoke about ambitions, fears, and lessons learned. I found myself listening more intently, soaking up her insights. Yet, beneath the calmness, there was always that subtle spark, the playful glance, the lingering touch of her hand, that reminded me of the passion simmering between us. Our physical intimacy continued to be a delicate mix of exploration and restraint. She had an almost intuitive understanding of timing, of pacing, and of the subtle ways desire could build. Every touch was deliberate, every kiss measured to convey both longing and tenderness. Unlike any relationship I had experienced before, passion didn't feel rushed or overwhelming. It felt layered, like a conversation in itself. We also began sharing more personal histories. She spoke about her family, her childhood, and the challenges she had faced growing up. I found myself drawn into her stories, captivated not just by the experiences but by the way she recounted them, with humor, reflection, and sometimes bittersweet acknowledgement. These conversations deepened my respect and affection for her, revealing the complexity behind her confident exterior. One late afternoon, we went for a walk in the park, hand in hand. The world around us seemed slower, quieter, as if the city had paused to give us space. She leaned into me, resting her head on my shoulder, and I felt a surge of protective, affectionate energy. We didn't speak for a while, letting the comfort of physical closeness say everything that words could not. Moments like these reminded me that intimacy isn't only about desire. It's about trust, comfort, and shared silence. There were challenges too. My youth sometimes made me impulsive, my emotions intense in ways that startled her. She met these moments with patience, guiding me to reflect rather than react. And when disagreements arose, we handled them with honesty and care. I never felt dismissed. Instead, I felt encouraged to express myself fully, knowing she valued my perspective. These experiences taught me the importance of communication, empathy, and emotional regulation in sustaining a meaningful relationship. The passion in our relationship was ever-present but never overpowering. There were nights filled with fiery intimacy, where every kiss, touch, and embrace conveyed desire and trust simultaneously. And there were quieter nights, where cuddling, soft conversation, and lingering glances sufficed to convey connection. That balance made every encounter feel fresh and authentic. We continued to explore life together. Small trips, cultural events, and even mundane errands became opportunities for connection. She had a way of making the ordinary feel special, infusing daily moments with curiosity and attention. I learned to slow down, appreciate nuance, and find joy in subtle experiences. In turn, my enthusiasm, spontaneity, and energy reminded her to embrace playfulness alongside sophistication. Our contrasts created a dynamic that was both complementary and exciting. One particularly memorable weekend, she invited me to her family home for a casual gathering. Meeting her family introduced a new layer of intimacy. I observed how she interacted with them, warmly, confidently, and with a natural sense of authority. It was inspiring to see this side of her, yet she made sure I felt comfortable, guiding me subtly through introductions and conversations. By the end of the evening, I felt not just accepted but valued, a testament to how deeply she trusted and integrated me into her life. Our private moments remained deeply intimate. She continued to teach me how to communicate desire, how to attune to subtle cues, and how to navigate both pleasure and emotion simultaneously. Each encounter was a mixture of tenderness, playfulness, and exploration. She had a remarkable ability to blend passion with guidance, making physical intimacy feel both exhilarating and profoundly meaningful. The emotional depth of our relationship became increasingly apparent. We shared not only desires and routines, but also aspirations, anxieties, and dreams. Conversations ranged from philosophical debates to whispered secrets at night. Through it all, I felt a profound connection, one that transcended age and experience, built instead on mutual respect, trust, and understanding. Even in moments of quiet tension, minor misunderstandings, differing priorities, or external stressors, we found ways to reconnect. Humor, gentle touch, and honest dialogue always guided us back to equilibrium. The age difference, which could have been a source of insecurity, became irrelevant. Our bond was built on alignment of values, emotional compatibility, and shared desire, rather than societal norms or expectations. Physical affection continued to be a central thread, intertwined with emotional intimacy. Her confidence guided me, yet I felt equally empowered to express myself. Each encounter reinforced trust, deepened connection, and solidified the emotional foundation of our relationship. Passion and tenderness existed side by side, never overshadowing each other. As our relationship progressed, I noticed changes in myself. I became more thoughtful, patient, and attuned to emotions, both mine and hers. I learned to appreciate subtlety in gestures, to navigate desire with care, and to approach intimacy as an ongoing dialogue rather than a single act. She inspired growth in me not by instruction but by example, showing me the balance between strength and vulnerability, passion and restraint. By now, we had built a unique rhythm, blending emotional depth, intellectual stimulation, playful energy, and physical desire. Each day offered opportunities to deepen understanding, explore connection, and nurture both passion and trust. Together, we had created a shared world that was dynamic, multidimensional, and profoundly fulfilling. Looking back, I realized how rare and transformative this connection was. She had brought out parts of me I hadn't known existed, while I had reminded her of spontaneity, youthful energy, and unrestrained curiosity. We had cultivated a relationship that was as much about growth and exploration as it was about desire and intimacy. A rare combination that made every moment both exhilarating and grounding. And in the quiet nights, holding her close or simply sharing space and comfort, I understood that what we shared was enduring. It was a partnership built on passion, intellect, emotional depth, and mutual respect. A connection that would leave a lasting imprint on both our lives, shaping our understanding of love, desire, and companionship forever. By this stage, our relationship had developed into something that felt both thrilling and comfortable, a rare combination. The fire that had initially drawn us together was still present, but it was now tempered with understanding, respect, and a profound sense of trust. Every encounter, whether playful, intimate, or reflective, carried layers of meaning that went beyond simple attraction. One weekend, she suggested a spontaneous road trip. We packed light, drove without a strict destination, and let the journey itself become the adventure. Along the way, we laughed, shared stories, and challenged each other with small games and teasing bets. The drive became a microcosm of our relationship. Freedom tempered with attention, passion balanced with patience, and curiosity fused with understanding. I noticed how effortlessly she navigated situations, balancing excitement with careful judgment, and I felt both admiration and desire. During the trip, we stopped at a secluded overlook as the sun dipped below the horizon. The view was breathtaking, but even that couldn't compete with the intensity of our connection at that moment. We sat close, her head resting on my shoulder, and let silence fill the space between us. In that quiet intimacy, I realized how much our relationship had grown. From initial attraction to a deeply layered bond encompassing desire, trust, mentorship, and companionship. Physical closeness remained a natural extension of our emotional bond. Her confidence guided the rhythm, but there was always room for mutual exploration and expression. Each touch, kiss, and embrace felt deliberate, charged with meaning, yet grounded in comfort. The balance between passion and restraint was intoxicating, teaching me to navigate desire with awareness and care. Even ordinary moments took on a new significance. Grocery shopping, walking through the city, or cooking together were infused with connection, playful teasing, and subtle intimacy. I noticed how she made ordinary tasks feel special, turning routine activities into shared experiences that strengthened our bond. Her attentiveness to detail, her ability to find joy in small things, and her effortless charm deepened my admiration and affection. Our emotional connection also continued to grow. Conversations spanned a wide range, from philosophical debates to personal vulnerabilities. She shared past regrets and lessons learned, while I revealed insecurities, ambitions, and fears. These exchanges fostered a profound sense of understanding, as if we were slowly uncovering each other's inner worlds layer by layer. I realized that desire without emotional depth would have been fleeting, but the combination of passion and connection made everything feel alive. There were challenges, of course. My youth sometimes made me impulsive, impatient, or uncertain, while her experience and confidence occasionally clashed with my energy. But rather than creating conflict, these moments became opportunities for growth. Honest dialogue, gentle humor, and patience allowed us to navigate disagreements without damaging the bond we had built. Each resolved tension reinforced trust and intimacy, proving that even friction could strengthen our connection. One evening, after a long day exploring the city, we returned to her apartment. She suggested a quiet night in, with music, wine, and conversation. We lounged on the couch, sipping wine and sharing stories about past experiences, our voices blending with the soft melodies in the background. The intimacy in that moment wasn't physical. It was a merging of presence, emotion, and trust. When she leaned against me, her warmth radiated in a way that words could never capture. Physical intimacy continued to be an evolving conversation between us. She guided me with patience and care, helping me understand both her desires and my own. Each encounter was a combination of passion, tenderness, and exploration. The experience was electric yet grounding, thrilling yet safe. I realized that in her presence, intimacy became a language, one that spoke to trust, desire, and emotional connection simultaneously. We also shared playful moments, challenges, teasing, and spontaneous adventures that kept the relationship dynamic. Whether it was a light-hearted argument over a trivial matter or an impromptu late-night drive, these moments reinforced our chemistry and reminded us why we were drawn to each other. The contrast between her composed confidence and my youthful impulsiveness created tension, curiosity, and excitement, keeping our connection alive and unpredictable. Our bond extended beyond shared experiences. We developed rituals that created a sense of continuity and belonging. Morning coffee together, exchanging playlists, sending thoughtful messages throughout the day. Each ritual, though small, added depth to our connection, reinforcing the understanding that intimacy wasn't limited to grand gestures or physical passion. It existed in the consistency of care, attention, and presence. By now, I had come to understand that our relationship was a rare blend of passion, mentorship, and companionship. The age difference, rather than a limitation, became a point of growth and learning. Her guidance, confidence, and experience complemented my curiosity, spontaneity, and youthful energy. Together, we navigated life in a way that was dynamic, balanced, and deeply satisfying. Even the quiet nights were significant. Sitting together, reading, listening to music, or simply sharing space, I felt fully present, completely connected. There was no need for grand gestures or dramatic moments. The depth of our bond was evident in these simple, shared experiences. Trust, desire, and emotional intimacy were woven seamlessly into our everyday lives. Looking back, I realized that our connection had grown into something transformative. She had awakened parts of me I hadn't recognized, and I had brought energy, spontaneity, and curiosity into her world. Together, we were learning, growing, and exploring not only each other but also ourselves. Passion, intellect, emotional depth, and mutual respect intertwined to create a relationship that was rare, thrilling, and profoundly satisfying. And even in the stillness, in the moments between kisses and conversations, I understood that what we shared was enduring. It wasn't just about desire or companionship. It was a partnership built on trust, growth, passion, and shared discovery. Each day, each touch, each conversation added a new layer, crafting a narrative that was uniquely ours, shaping the way we understood love, connection, and intimacy. By now, our relationship had matured into something that felt both exhilarating and deeply secure. The initial intensity that had drawn us together remained, but it had evolved, layered with trust, understanding, and a sense of mutual growth. We had shared countless experiences, playful, intimate, reflective, and adventurous, and each one had contributed to the tapestry of our bond. One late evening, she invited me to join her on the balcony, a quiet ritual we had developed over time. The city stretched out below, lights flickering like stars, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers from nearby gardens. We sat close, shoulders touching, simply observing the night. In these moments, the connection we shared felt almost sacred, a quiet acknowledgement of everything we had built together. Our physical intimacy had reached a rhythm that was deeply satisfying yet never predictable. Each encounter carried the weight of desire, but also the lightness of playfulness and mutual exploration. She guided me with a gentle confidence, helping me navigate passion with care and attention, and I responded with curiosity and enthusiasm. Every kiss, touch, and embrace was a conversation, a layered expression of longing, trust, and affection. Even in quieter moments, the intimacy between us was palpable. A hand brushing my arm, a subtle look, or a casual touch on the back carried meaning. These gestures, small yet deliberate, reinforced the depth of our connection, reminding me that intimacy wasn't solely about physicality. It was a constant thread woven through every interaction. We also continued our playful rituals, late-night drives, spontaneous weekend adventures, or small challenges that sparked teasing arguments. These moments kept the relationship dynamic, preventing it from settling into predictability. Her composure and experience contrasted beautifully with my youthful energy and impulsiveness, creating a rhythm that was both balanced and electrifying. Our emotional bond deepened alongside physical passion. Conversations that began with casual topics often evolved into discussions about life, aspirations, fears, and personal growth. She shared stories from her past, her triumphs, regrets, and lessons learned, and I revealed my own vulnerabilities. Each exchange reinforced trust, empathy, and understanding, revealing the profound compatibility that extended far beyond attraction. One particular evening, we prepared dinner together. The kitchen was small, our movements overlapping as we worked in harmony. There was laughter, playful teasing, and the occasional flirtatious glance. Cooking had become more than a mundane task. It was an expression of connection, cooperation, and shared joy. When we finally sat down to eat, the meal was secondary to the intimacy of being together, of enjoying each other's presence in every small, meaningful way. Physical passion remained a core part of our connection, yet it was never rushed or overwhelming. She had an instinctive understanding of timing and desire, guiding me gently while allowing me to express myself freely. Each encounter was a delicate balance of tenderness, intensity, and playful exploration. The result was intimacy that was as thrilling as it was grounded, a partnership in which desire and respect coexisted seamlessly. Our relationship wasn't without challenges. My impulsiveness sometimes clashed with her composed demeanor, and my insecurities occasionally surfaced. But rather than creating distance, these moments became opportunities for growth. Honest communication, empathy, and patience allowed us to navigate tension, ultimately strengthening our bond. Every resolved disagreement reinforced trust and deepened the emotional intimacy between us. We continued to explore life together, whether through travel, cultural events, or simple everyday moments. She had a way of making the ordinary extraordinary, turning mundane activities into shared adventures. In turn, I brought spontaneity and youthful energy into her world, reminding her of the joy in unpredictability. Our contrasts became a source of excitement, learning, and connection, rather than conflict. Even in the quietest moments, reading side by side, sipping coffee, or listening to music, we felt connected. Physical presence, shared glances, and subtle touches communicated more than words ever could. These moments reinforced the understanding that intimacy was multifaceted, encompassing emotional depth, physical desire, playful energy, and mutual respect. Looking back on our journey, I realized how transformative this relationship had been. She had opened my eyes to new experiences, emotions, and perspectives. I had brought energy, curiosity, and enthusiasm to her life. Together, we had cultivated a relationship that was complex, layered, and deeply fulfilling. Passion, intellect, emotional intimacy, and mutual respect intertwined to create something rare and enduring. We often reflected on the age difference, but it had become irrelevant in the context of our connection. Experience and youth complemented each other, creating a balance that fueled both excitement and growth. Her guidance encouraged my development, while my energy and curiosity reminded her of the thrill in spontaneity. It wasn't about who was older or more experienced. It was about two people fully engaging in a relationship that challenged, excited, and nurtured them simultaneously. The culmination of our journey wasn't marked by grand declarations or dramatic gestures. It was found in the quiet confidence of knowing we had built something meaningful together. Every touch, every conversation, every shared adventure had contributed to a tapestry of intimacy, passion, and mutual understanding. It was a bond that could withstand uncertainty, excitement, and growth because it was rooted in trust, care, and authentic connection. In the end, what we shared was rare. It wasn't just about desire or companionship. It was about a meeting of minds, hearts, and bodies in a way that felt alive and transformative. Each day offered opportunities to deepen understanding, explore connection, and nurture the balance of passion and trust. Together, we had created a world that was uniquely ours, a partnership that left an indelible mark on both our lives. And even in moments of stillness, as I held her close or simply shared space in silence, I knew that our relationship was enduring. It was a partnership built on passion, intellect, emotional depth, and mutual respect, a rare combination that created intimacy, excitement, and growth simultaneously. Each interaction, whether playful, intimate, or reflective, reinforced the richness of our connection, shaping our understanding of love, desire, and shared life in profound and lasting ways.